All right, hearing no other suggestions, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now, I see we have one magistrate using, is that your Chrome phone there, or Chrome?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
This is my personal laptop.
Well, we have new electrical connections added to the dais here, and soon we all expect to be using laptops and to replace the books that we have. I may keep this book, but we make 9 copies of each one of our agendas, and it winds up being a lot of paper, a lot of copying, and it's going to be a lot simpler when we get on, each one gets on a Chromebook here, so.
iPads, Judge.
Pardon?
We did iPads.
Excuse me, iPad. Well, Chromebooks, iPads, cell phones, you know, they all kind of run together in my head as the same thing, but they're not, I guess, so. But anyway, we're looking forward to that. So Denise, will you now read the minutes from our last meeting, which was on August 4th?
August 4th, 2020, the Oldham County Fiscal Court convened at a regular meeting at 2 p.m. with Judge Executive David Vogel, County Attorney John Carter, and the following magistrates in attendance: Brenta Likens, Wayne Tice, Albert Harrison, Steve Greenwell, Chris Hounds, Stephanie Hopkins, Bob Dye, and Michael Logston. Motion made by Magistrate Dye and seconded by Magistrate Greenwell to approve the agenda as submitted. Motion carried unanimously. Motion made by Magistrate Dye and seconded by Magistrate Hounds to approve the meeting minutes from July 21st, 2020, with 2 corrections: revise the bid award dispatch PTP simulcast microwave network to reflect as motion passed, and revise the payables to reflect as motion passed. Motion carried unanimously. Public comment. Rebecca Zockline, Solid Waste Recycling and Grants Coordinator, announced the recycling center would be reopening on Monday, August 10th, 2020. Laura Parson, Sheriff's Office Administrative Director, presented the property tax settlement for 2019 and responded to questions from the court. Motion made by Magistrate Likens and seconded by Magistrate Hounds to authorize the Judge Executive to sign the Sheriff Property Tax Settlement for 2019 as submitted. Motion carried unanimously. Director of Public Health, Teresa Gamsky, provided an update on COVID-19, then presented information relating to the Public Health Taxing District fiscal year 21 budget. Ms. Gamsky responded to questions from the court. The following sealed bids were received and opened for the Eden Parkway Phase 1 and 2 construction project and Lagrange Parkway median modification. Dan Christiani Excavating, $2,876,713. Flynn Brothers, $2,920,299.53. Louisville Paving, $2,740,000. Mack Construction, $3,050,000. S Walk Incorporated, doing business as 7 Seas Construction, $3,492,998.98. Motion made by Magistrate Logston and seconded by Magistrate Hounds to approve the payables as submitted. Motion carried unanimously. Motion made by Magistrate Hawkins and seconded by Magistrate Dye to declare surplus the Parks and Recreation property with the intention to sell at public auction scheduled for Saturday, August 15th, 2020 as submitted. Motion carried unanimously. Community Business, second reading, zoning map amendment, 5701 and 5801 Hounds Lane. Magistrates Harrison and Hounds recused themselves and left the courtroom during discussion of this item. Amy Alvey presented for second reading proposed ordinance number KOC 20-928-68 relating to a change in the Oldham County zoning map, rezoning a 2.11 acre tract located at 5701 and 5801 Hounds Lane, Louisville, Kentucky, from the existing R2 residential district zoning classification to I1 light industrial district zoning classification. Barry Baxter, attorney representing the applicant, Carl Hounds Jr. and family, provided an introduction and testimony in support of the proposed zoning map amendment. No one spoke in opposition of the proposed zoning map amendment. Barry Baxter and Amy Alvey responded to questions and provided additional testimony. The public hearing closed. Motion made by Magistrate Logston and seconded by Magistrate Hawkins to adopt the ordinance number KOC 20-928-68 relating to a change in the Oldham County zoning map, rezoning a 2.11 acre tract located at 5701 and 5801 Hounds Lane, Louisville, Kentucky, from the existing R2 residential district zoning classification to I1 light industrial district zoning classification. Discussion followed. Motion carried 7-0-2 on a roll call vote. Judge Vogel and the following magistrates voted yes: Likens, Tice, Greenwell, Hawkins, Dye, and Logston. Magistrates Harrison and Hounds recused themselves from this item. Contracts, resolutions. Motion made by Magistrate Logston and seconded by Magistrate Hawkins to authorize the judge executive to sign the biometric screening agreement with On-Site Health Solutions. Motion carried unanimously. Committee recommendations reports. HR Committee. Motion made by Magistrate Logston and seconded by Magistrate Hawkins to approve the dispatch step plan. Motion carried unanimously. Motion made by Magistrate Logston and seconded by Magistrate Hawkins to accept the social distancing policy and the virus, bacteria, and disease control policy to be added to the employee handbook as submitted. Motion carried unanimously. Motion made by Magistrate Logston and seconded by Magistrate Greenwell to accept the following personnel actions: the resignation of Scott Thompson from Planning and Development Services effective 7/17/2020. The new hire, Brianna Haichu, as Administrative Assistant 2 in Planning and Development Services at $16 an hour, effective 8/5/2020. The resignation of Tara Phillips from Dispatch, effective 7/20/2020. The rehire, Justin Goodlow, as Building Monitor for Parks and Recreation at $7.55 an hour, effective 8/4/2020. Motion carried unanimously. Motion made by Magistrate Logston and seconded by Magistrate Hounds to accept the reappointment of Donald St. Clair to the Henry County Water District No. 2 Board. Motion carried unanimously. Motion made by Magistrate Likens and seconded by Magistrate Hounds to adjourn the meeting. Motion carried unanimously. The meeting adjourned at 3:58 p.m.
You've heard the reading of our minutes from August 4th. Are there any corrections? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. You did mention during the minutes that we had a surplus property auction on Saturday at the old road garage across from the high school. Appreciate Melissa and Rodney and Kevin and others who were there from our staff helping that auction to run successfully. There's sometimes money in old scrap. I think we netted out about $60,000 after expenses from that. So it was a nice auction, and the sum total of a lot of old stuff that we didn't need here anymore, cars and tractors and other things, did add up to an amount of money that we'll be able to use for something positive in the future. So thank you everyone who participated in our auction. Now, we're here at the point of our meeting where we normally accept the public comments. Is there anyone here who would like to address the fiscal court in public comment? All right, seeing no, and I do see Teresa here. Do you have any, are you on the agenda for the meeting, or would you just like to say anything about the COVID situation here? Teresa Gamsky, Director of Public Health.
Good afternoon, Fiscal Court. Thank you for the invitation today.
Is your mic on there, do you think?
I believe so. Can you hear me? I have to use my mom voice.
Okay.
Thank you, Fiscal Court, for your service to our community. And I was invited here today to kind of just to keep you informed of the overall progress in management of COVID in our community. Specifically, there had been some questions regarding follow-up with the OC Fair, and I'm happy to answer any questions about that for you as well. So whatever topic you'd like to tackle first, I'll be glad to provide that to you. But let me go ahead and start and just giving you an overall breakdown. Could we use the viewer, Denise? Thank you, ma'am.
Teresa, while she's setting that up,
Yesterday, the governor announced 376 cases, I believe, and that comes a Monday after the weekend, which I'm sure the labs aren't open all those times, and he gave Oldham County as having 9 cases. Is that like a cumulative for the weekend, or is that just a one-day snapshot?
Boy, it's difficult to judge because, we have many different labs reporting into our, what we call Ms4 system. So Quest, LabCorp, Gravity, all the hospitals, physicians' offices are all feeding into that one system. So oftentimes we get a lab dump, is what we call it, where a lab will just release 200 labs that sometimes they're delivered or sent to us in a timely fashion, and sometimes they're backlogged where, we've missed those negatives and labs and things like that.
So it's better really to take like a 7-day average, I guess, versus...
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, and we watched that 7-day average fairly closely. We were excited last week. We had been in that accelerated phase, which is 10 to 25 labs a day. And again, that 7-day average gives you a better picture in case we do get those labs dumped in our system. This week we had actually fluctuated just right below the community spread, right below 10. So we were, wow, maybe we're slowing and making progress. So we're watching that number every day as well, sir.
Thank you.
What I have for you to hear is an effort. These demographics are hard to come by with our current systems, but right now in Oldham County, we're looking at 773 cases. You can see the corrections and the long-term care areas. I think our long-term care situations are in good shape. We really have some great community partners that are working hard in our community to ensure that we're supporting them with that tremendous work. Because as you know, once this virus gets into a congregate setting, like a prison or long-term care, it is very difficult to control. We are saddened again for an increase in our death rates today. I don't have a breakdown. I believe it's more heavy loaded on the inmate side, unfortunately, with the death rate. Ever hospitalized, I think our hospitals and we're fortunate to have the healthcare system around us in Louisville and our community that are very much seem to have a handle on how to treat and manage this disease. However, we do have a total of 10 Oldham County residents that are currently in the hospital at this time. The cases resolved, this information is getting a little bit harder to come by every day, used to. When we have cases in hospitals and corrections, those entities are responsible to report dispositions on specific patients every day, and that's going to be kind of going away with that, and they'll be reporting in a different fashion so the state can make sure they have the assets they need to respond in that case. So any questions about that? I'll give you an age demographic as well. This is additional data that we've been trying to compile and of course monitor as we look at the decision for schools to reopen, and our goal is we get our kids safely back into school in a monitor control environment. We get our families back to work. Our community is hurting. Our community is hurting. There's a lot of people unemployed, a lot of people accessing services that have never had to access services before. So please be compassionate and understand that we are trying to operate under and provide those families with all the support and assets that we do here have in Oldham County. So if you look at the 0 to 18 age group, it only looks like 30 cases, but actually that's a 49% increase in that age group. Our children need to be in a controlled, monitored environment. Attending social gatherings, pool parties, any other social gathering, if we want them in school, we are still in that phase that we need to monitor those social events. If you're going to a social event, please wear a mask. That lowers your risk and other person's risk as well. So we're seeing that growth. And then also in the 19 to 25 age group, that is a 58% increase in that age group. 26 to 35 is about a 14%. 36 to 45 is about a 32%. Again, those are our working families, most likely, or trying to work. 46 to 55, again, almost 40% increase. 56 to 65, about a 22% increase. 66 to 75, 8% increase. And then our older folks, 76 to 85, 9% increase. And then we have those other numbers are unknown. So by this, it looks like we're protecting our higher risk populations, our older folks, those with any kind of health disparities that may impact or risk their exposure to COVID. So we're watching those numbers and again trying to provide specific guidance of how these specific age groups can prevent this spread. Today's positivity rate in the state is at 5.8%. We hope it's continuing to go down. It had really been edging up closer, or a little bit over the 6%, which we didn't want to get past that. It was showing continuous surge. So we hope things are calming down as we kind of calm down and get back in our routines and hopefully get our kids at least back into NTI instruction and get those resources set for the community. Any questions I can ask about the data specifically, or?
Any questions about the data? It's just, someone said to me that although we're the maybe 9th largest county in the state, that we were higher in the overall,
I think we're,
like number
I looked
3 or
yesterday,
something.
we're number 9 as far as numbers of cases
Okay,
in the state. Yes, sir.
thank
Judge, I'm sorry.
Albert?
Yes, sir.
How is that number affected by the prison population we've got here that other counties do not have?
How are they, I'm
If we're
sorry.
number 9, I mean, if we take the prisoner population out of it, where does that put us?
I'll look at that data and give you
But
a
I think
count.
that distorts our figures.
I disagree with you, Mr. Albertson,
Okay.
because those prisoners are in and out of the facility for various health appointments and procedures continually. So they are out in our community often. Additionally, the workers that go in to serve those inmates are also working and living in our community, and that's where those transmissions are happening. So we need to monitor and control each segment of that transmission.
Had not thought of it that way. It makes sense.
Yes,
Thank you.
sir. And a lot of people think of it that way. I don't mean to disagree with you in that, but they are residents of our county. They just have different restrictions than the rest of us, so they can, be exposed as well, or can potentially be an exposure. Yes,
But they
sir.
have a higher density.
Absolutely, absolutely.
As a county that a county that doesn't have a place that incarcerates people wouldn't have that kind of density. So,
Correct, absolutely, and that's what makes those congregate settings so viable
control, yeah.
for this virus, absolutely. So a lot of people don't realize that the inmate population housed at KSR are in and out of that facility quite often.
Magistrate Hounds had a question, and then Magistrate Logston.
So the inmate population is counted in the county number?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because I was told last night that it wasn't, and I didn't think that was true. Okay.
Magistrate Logston.
Bruce, I have a question. I've been told, I don't know if this is correct or not. So are you just counting one time? I heard you had to get tested twice to be negative. Is that true? Or if you're tested positive, you have to go back a certain amount of time and get tested to make sure you don't have it. Does it have to be twice or once? And are those numbers counted just one person getting positive, or is it counted twice if you have to go get tested twice?
Okay, I think I understand what you're asking. You're asking if we see duplicates in the system of people that have initially tested positive, and then when they come back to test negative, is that person counted 3 times, so to speak?
Yes.
No. That
Okay.
positive is counted one time. If that person retests and they're negative, that's great news. If they retest and they're positive, we look at that viral load in that person, we're still only counting that positive case one time. Right. And so the state does cipher through lab reports and ensures that there are no duplicates because people are retesting. And right now, we are operating off of a non-testing protocol, so to speak, because early on, that was the protocol that, you know, after you finish your isolation or quarantine period, that you were retested and you were looking for that negative. That's a test-based strategy, and they have moved away from that test-based strategy to more of a symptomology strategy, that if you haven't had fever in 24 hours and it's been 10 days since the onset of your symptoms, you're most likely through that viral period and would not be contagious, because we're seeing people continue to test positive sometimes for weeks and weeks after that initial viral period.
Last question. When are you retiring?
Not any day too soon, but end of October, sir.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank you again.
Don't mean to be smart, but we are tired. I will give you just a quick update on the fair, since this has been a very high discussion area in the community. I wanted the community to be aware of what those protocols were, why they were placed in this recommendation. So what I have here is the specific event guidance for festivals and events. Governor Beshear and the Healthy at Work advisors prepared this specific guidance based upon CDC recommendations for each sector and entity to maintain that ability to operate when choosing to host a public function or event in respect to Kentucky's COVID outbreak. We are in an outbreak, right? We're in a pandemic. The guidance reflects the role of the local public health department to perform its statutory duty to mitigate disease, and also protects the privacy of cases and their contacts in respect to their rights under HIPAA. So the Fair Board had suggested a process. That process was considered within this guidance of what our role is and how we can share personal health information and the responsibility that we have as a local public health department to protect that information. So at a minimum, you can see the list of requirements, but here on the big check mark, this guidance I have to read it from here. That the Fair Board maintain a record of persons and their contact information, telephone number preferred, attending the event, and cooperate with state and/or local public health official requests to notify attendees in the event it is linked by contact tracing to a high risk of a COVID exposure. So as the fair ended, I believe it was August 9th, in order to be proactive and prepared, I did request the list that was supposedly maintained during the fair. After 2 events, I did notify Judge Vogel that we had not received that. And the purpose that is requested is because that information is extremely time sensitive. Like after that event, as soon as we knew we had a positive case that had attended the fair, I really would have liked to have been able to access the tool that the governor provided me in order to mitigate this disease and perhaps notifying the attendees of a specific date or time that they could have had exposure to a positive case. With that information, those folks could have then made the decision, maybe I should be monitoring for signs and symptoms, or at least alert my employer that, you know, I'm monitoring for signs and symptoms and I want to be ensured that I'm not bringing this into my workplace to my home, to my family, to prevent transmission. So that is the purpose of that. The purpose of that information is not to seek to have personal information of people in our county of who attended what. We would have been looking at a specific time and event that I would not be, at that point, privy to share with the Fair Board to make that decision. So again, that information could have been a vital tool for us to communicate in a time-sensitive manner to reach those folks that attended a specific event. And that is the purpose of that information, and follows along with contact tracing strategy. So other than that, Judge Vogel, we are past the window of opportunity as far as our involvement at mitigation from this event. To my knowledge, we have not received additional lab results of a positive case. So at this point, we feel like it has been contained to one case, and we'll continue to monitor and support that case during that contact tracing process. And it might be helpful for the public to also know, when we make that initial call to a family that has a positive case, of course, our first priority is to assist them and support them that that virus is not transmitted to their extended family. And then secondly, one of the very important things we're doing is we assess each situation to ensure that those basic needs are met. Do they have the ability to isolate in their housing situation? Do they need to have temporary housing so they can isolate? Do they have access to food? Do they have access to their prescriptions? How can we assist them to adhere to a successful isolation? And we go over and above to ensure that every family that is dealing with this has access to those resources to ensure that success. So that is the bottom line where it hits the street level, whether sometimes it's just a matter of taking people a thermometer. You would be surprised at the number of folks no longer have a thermometer in their home. So we take each positive case, some information, contact numbers of what to do if they feel like their situation is worsening or changing. Here's the thermometer, here's our phone numbers, you call us if you need us. If you need access to health care, call us. We will link you up to those services. So that is the entire, really, mission and vision behind contact tracing.
Teresa, I have a question. Just maybe when I was sitting there listening to you talk, we've worked 7 months into this, 6.5 months into this now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that the hospitalization rate is down or up compared to the amount of people that are being tested versus back in March or April?
I think the hospital situation is much improved. First of all, they have the equipment and the protective equipment that they need access to readily available now, not being, shared so much. And absolutely, we're not seeing, concerns over those ICU beds. In fact, that is data specifically that the state actually assumes that role to monitor. At the local level, we're nuts and bolts on the ground, and we have the state that is providing that system to back us up and to alert us if anything would change in our region, so we can respond as a region or pull in resources from other regions that we do have access to.
I guess I read a lot on this stuff, so I was just wondering if you think the virus is getting weaker as it mutates, or is it staying the same, or mutating stronger, I guess is what I'm asking.
Mm-hmm. To be honest, I haven't read any information recently on the fact of mutation. I'm definitely not an expert in that area. I think it's, we know viruses do mutate. So I'm sure as we move along, as the researchers, again, like you said, we're only 6 months into this. As soon as we, I think, get through this what we consider a mitigation phase, where again, purpose of contact tracing is learning how this virus is behaving within families. We'll see a family of 5 where 4 of them had pretty You know, a couple of them had almost very low symptoms. Some will have medium symptoms where they had a significant illness, kind of like the flu, and maybe has fatigue for weeks and weeks. And then you would see another person that is in ICU. So we've seen it across the board there, but I'm pretty confident our hospitals are in great situation today.
Measured Harrison.
Thank you, Judge. Teresa, do we know that the Fair Board actually did what they were supposed to do, and now they're just withholding the information? Or could we say they did not do it, and that's why we cannot get the information because it does not exist?
That is an excellent question, Mr. Harrison. I have no idea. You know, I had talked to two of the board members prior to the event. You know, I had talked to them, we had went through this guidance, and you know, I said, the governor's provided you this guidance, and I'm accepting your good faith word that you're going to adhere to the guidance, and you know, that's really the authority we had at the time. And since I had requested that information on August 9th, I believe, and August 10th, I have not received any kind of response other than how they're communicating to us through different media sources and, you know, telling the media that, you know, their position with their PR representative there. So we have no idea if they actually did maintain those records as requested. I have no evidence of that, sir.
All right, well, thank you. That leads me to another question, and that would be for Mr. Carter. Do we have any legal leverage in this situation?
No.
Sweet, another toothless enforcement.
Well, let me rephrase that. The reason there is no legal leverage is because it was a recommendation from the governor. Had it been a direct, one of his orders, then police could have enforced social distancing and all of the things in the governor's order, because violation of the governor's order is a Class A misdemeanor. But no, we don't.
So we're back to simple morality and ethics of
Well-
people not doing what they said they were going to do, possibly.
And I guess there's always room for a liability. That would also be a legal question. If someone did become ill, you know, that's a private, I guess,
Right.
situation in that regard, that a person would have that legal liability recourse. But as far as public health, you know, we had quite a few conversations with our legal counsel at the state and had the same point of, you know, when we need to enforce something, you don't give us the authority. And when we really don't need to enforce it, you give us all this authority, like writing citations for not wearing a mask.
Oops.
So you gotta have to balance this with common sense. In this regard, it's a tough decision.
Thank you.
All right, I'm not going to say anything more about that. I do have a letter to the editor in the paper coming up this week in response to a criticism of me and how I handle this, so I'll let people read that when it comes out. I would like to know if, do you coordinate with the other counties that surround us, Trimble, Henry, Shelby, that may have had individuals at the fair to find out if there was any reaction or exposure in those counties?
I can definitely inquire, Judge Vogel, be glad to do that.
I mean, do they have contact tracing in these surrounding counties?
Oh, absolutely. North Central District are, you know, across those Shelby, Spencer, Henry, and Trimble counties. So yes, we have great working relationships with our neighboring health departments.
Okay. Well, thank you. Appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the fiscal court during open comment here? Seeing no one else, I'm going to close the open comment session and go on to the first item on our agenda today. We're fortunate to have two of our great fire departments here today, and I'd like to have Chief Steve Fonte from Ballardsville come up, and he has a presentation about the department and their tax rate and so forth. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you, Judge, Magistrates. In regards to the KRS statute to report our tax rate, the Ballardsville District Board of Trustees established a 2020 tax rate for real and personal property at 10 cents for each $100 valuation, and a tax rate on motor vehicles and watercraft at 10 cents for each $100 valuations. It's been the same for years. I can't tell you, it's since 2008, we increased that when we were projecting our Station 2 property. And as far as our budget, an estimated income for 2021 budget year is $700,000. Last year we were estimated at $703,000. We actually brought in about $690. So, and with this year with PVA and all the COVID-19, we don't know. We haven't got those numbers yet from PVA, so we're going to just guesstimate as $700,000. As far as reserve funds, we have $607,155.77. We rolled some of that over from our last year's budget when, we've got some money in for costs for blacktop in the parking lot. We just rolled that over. We keep those in there every year or two. We have to do that, and we didn't need to last year. It wasn't as bad as what we thought. So, and then we're still little pieces at a time trying to finish our Station 2 dormitories for that. And I also included just basically a breakdown of our budget worksheet. This is kind of how we do when we pay the bills monthly. You can basically see what we're budgeted for this year. Any questions on
All right, James, anybody, Chief, I noticed your gross wages here, $260,000. I know, do you have how many full-time staff?
I'm the only full-time
You're the only-
person. So
okay.
we do, I'm full-time. We have part-time members that work. We staff one engine from Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and then volunteer nights and on Sundays.
Okay.
Volunteer staff obviously is it's diminished a little bit. It's not bad. We have between 35 and 40 volunteer members, 50 on our roster, which 10 of those are basically part-time members that live out of the district that don't make runs when needed. So.
Well, I noticed that number, and then I noticed the next one on the budget here, retirement, $3,200. Frankly, on $260,000 gross wages, you're not putting a whole lot into retirement here.
That's
I think that, like about 1.5% or something here. It's pretty high. You guys could use a little bit more there, couldn't you?
that's me.
Well,
Yeah. So I put the board, and I mean it's all public. I put in 10% of my gross, and then I match that. I put in 10%. The board matches 5%.
I see.
That's how that works.
Well, you can go back to the board and tell them the county
need
judge
to up it, yeah.
doesn't said publicly he doesn't think your retirement is sufficient. Yeah, you're a young guy, but we all get older. All right. Anybody else have anything? Ballardsville's doing a great job. It's a good fire department, and
Thank you.
appreciate the leadership you've shown there.
Thank you. Thank you all.
All right, thank you. All right, not to be outdone, Chief Hewitt Brown is here from North Oldham, and welcome, Chief. Glad
Thanks.
to have you here today.
Afternoon, everybody. So yeah, Hewitt Brown, Chief at North Oldham. I've been here going on 2 years now. So I'm just going to give an overview of how our department works so you know what's happening with the money I'm going to talk about towards the end here for a second. We staff, for the last year, we staffed 2 stations. We have our Skylight Station and the station down in Goshen. 2 crews, 24 hours a day. They're all part-time employees, and what that does for us is enable to have that full-time staffing, but we don't pay into state retirement. We have a 401k that we pay into, but we don't have state retirement as a result of that. Most of our folks work at some other fire department. This is their second job. So that's sort of what that side of things look like. Just some of the highlights from last year. I think COVID, talked a lot about that already, has kind of hit everybody. It's been especially challenging for us staffing-wise, and again, it's because it's fire department and all our folks are working in other communal settings at other fire departments. It's probably one of the strangest outcomes with COVID. It's actually put our budget personnel-wise down a little bit because we've had a lot of people off, a lot of people being isolated. That's not a good thing in my mind, but it has happened, right? Last year, we purchased 2 new pieces of apparatus. We got a mini pumper, so it's a specialized piece of equipment that can access some of the tiny little roads, big farmhouses with bridges that our normal-sized apparatus couldn't get to. We also purchased a new rescue boat, downsized and redesigned, got rid of our old boat. And so both of those purchases, we used funds from sales of upper apparatus to fund, right? So those were cash purchases. The bond, which is our only debt, and that's for our firehouse down in Goshen, got upgraded by Moody's, so the rating improved. So apparently they feel like we're a sound financial investment. So you can buy that or not. But we were happy about it. Right, and so that's sort of what happened last year for us. That's interesting. When we look our income, we're super fortunate to be in a good financial position in our district. We took in about $1,700,000 last year. After personnel, operating expenses, administration, capital, and then the debt service, we have a net position of about $15,000 after all of that. Our cash position is good. We put about $21,000 away each month to pay for capital expenditures, and so the plan is out the next 10 years, we won't take on any new debt. So apparatus purchases and stuff like that is all going to be for cash. That's our plan at the moment. And then total debt service is just over, just shy of $2 million. And that again is that bond that is for the firehouse. Questions about that stuff?
Right, the chief noticed here, going back up before you got to the money, Zodiac boat. What is a Zodiac?
So it's an inflatable. It's actually got a rigid hull, but inflatable around the side of it. So if you've ever seen your like typical Coast Guard boat, it looks very similar to that. We just say Zodiac style because that's what most people recognize as an inflatable boat.
Now, I'm under the impression that you sold your other previous.
Yeah, so we had a
boat.
large twin-engine catamaran metal boat that was just too big for our application. I mean, most of what we're doing is rescue, and so we wanted something that was nimbler, quicker, and less expensive to run. Yeah.
Well, between you and Harrods Creek and Westport, how are emergencies on the Ohio River being handled?
Well, I think unfortunately, we had a drowning a couple weeks ago, and we got a really good response from all those folks, plus Indiana Wildlife Management and then DNR from Kentucky. And so I think the next step here in the next, say, 6 months, a year is really to get all those folks together, figure out how to work together more efficiently. Right? Honestly, our response has not been there for the last year because we were in transition between the two boats.
All right,
So there's some planning to do.
Something
there.
happens,
Yep.
who's the first contact, the dispatch agency or? the
Yeah,
Coast
so the
Guard?
dispatch usually gets contacted, and it's always kind of interested where that call is going to come from, because depending on where the location in the river is, it can mean it comes through Indiana, we can get it over here, we can get it transferred from MetroSafe, and so part of that coordination is, I think, a big discussion that needs to happen, right? And there's a lot of people, Jerry Nerton included in that, who's already been having those discussions out there.
Oldham County owns the north half of 12 Mile Island.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever go out there and stop there or check that, or?
Well, I mean, we don't patrol per se. One of our biggest things is our main mission is fire protection. And so we're not going to take a crew out of service to go and patrol. We train in that area quite a bit. And so if a call comes in, we're pretty familiar with that area and the hazards. Honestly, like in my experience, I've been with North Oldham for about 18, 20 years now. There's 4 or 5 places in our district in the river that you can rely on being the problem. So if you can identify those 4 places, usually they're like rope swings, places where people drink regularly, all that kind of stuff. You can go to that spot.
I see.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Does anybody have any questions here for the chief?
All right, thank you.
All right, well, thank you. Appreciate the good job you guys at North Oldham are doing as well. And I hope that one of my goals since I've been county judge, and I haven't pushed it hard, but to have I think all our fire departments work together and have them work together as close as they possibly can to support each other. They all have common mission throughout the county, and where possible, I would like to see, group buys, trying to leverage our money as a community across these 6 fire districts, and I think they all work well together, and are certainly if there's ever an emergency, everybody comes as fast as they possibly can. And I think, that's a great example. And also, but I'd like to see it extended to the non-emergency situations where we're just sitting around talking about how we can do a better job. So I appreciate you guys being here today and wish you continued success. The next item on our agenda today has to do with the Stormwater District, and we have Chairman Will Douglas here and our County Engineer Jim Sullivan.
Good afternoon, Judge Vogel and the magistrates. And I'm here today to present our Oldham County Stormwater Management District FY 2021 proposed budget and the estimated FY 2020 year-end budget. Again, the Stormwater Board members, Gail Cox, Tom Springer, and myself would like to thank especially Stan Clark and Jim, our county engineer, MS4 coordinator, and also his staff for assisting the Stormwater Board in our process of mitigating our stormwater issues throughout the county. Without them, we would be terribly lost because the board members rely on them totally on providing us expertise in those areas. At our June 2020 meeting, the board had voted to approve our condensed summary results for FY 2019 and our estimated FY 2020 and our proposed budget for FY 2021. The board also recommended and approved that the stormwater quality fee remain the same at $33.84 a year. And as you all know, that fee has been at that amount for many years now. Probably before the existence of the 2016 time period when the county reestablished the Oldham County Stormwater Board. In your packet, you'll find that the FY 2021 proposed budget reflects a total operating revenues, which we collect approximately about $2.2 million. And as of 2021, about $890,000 will be collected in revenues for that year. It's down about $10,000 from last year. And the reason why that's down is because we lost revenue from the city of Goshen, who pulled out of being a co-permittee in the county and became their own permittee with the state, a division of water, similar to Pee Wee Valley did many years ago. And so that we lost about $10,000 in revenue. But we do estimate about $4,000 will be earned in interest income. And we do have a carryover revenue of approximately $1.375 million to our reserves for major capital improvement projects. Moving to our proposed FY 2021 total operating expenses, you'll notice our expenditures range from our administrative costs, which is our CAECO insurance premiums, our SPGE, which is the special purpose government entity, our audit and our director fees. They come out to approximately $8,200. We have two service contract agreements, one with Oldham County Fiscal Court and one with the city of Lagrange. Oldham County is at $525,000, which is the same amount that was agreed upon in 2016 when we reestablished the Stormwater Board. Same with the city of Lagrange, it's at $100,000. We have proposed in our budget for expenditures our MS4 projects at $500,000. That would include the Goshen Hills Phase 1 project and also the Buckner soccer field project. And then depending on our actual cost of stormwater capital improvement projects, there may be other stormwater projects. Our proposed FY 2021 cash at the year end is estimated at approximately, if you see, about $1.136 million That'll be cash on hand. That will leave us with, or allows us, if you notice, our budget is based on our budget for FY '21, total operating revenues, and our operating expenditure, that's about $239,200 that will go into reserves at the end of 2021, added to that, so which gives our total 1.136. In order to save some time and provide our MS4 coordinator on the opportunity for his presentation, he's going to talk to you about our MS4 program. You were provided our condensed summary results for FY 2019 and our estimated FY 2020 budget. Although I would like to inform you that last year we had proposed in our operating expenditures also $500,000 for our MS4 projects. Unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 and delay in getting some homeowners' signatures and meeting with homeowners in the Goshen Hills project, our MS4 projects, that $500,000 was just zero based out. If you notice our projected 2020, zero based out and kept in reserves. We're hoping in 2021 we'll be moving forward with our Goshen Hills Phase 1 project. I believe you'll hear from our county engineer, MS4 coordinator, that you will see a bid award today for the Goshen Hills project, which, as you probably already know, when the last time it was opened, I think it was in July, it was a little higher than we anticipated. You guys approved, the magistrates in the court here approved approximately $420,000 for two projects in your budget for the stormwater to reimburse you for those two projects. Most of those bids came in over that amount. But we're working through some of this, and I think Jim will explain some of that to you, how we believe we can resolve this and still maintain and get those two projects completed, or at least Phase 1 project and the Soccer Fields project within the budget. So at the end of Jim's presentation, I'll be glad to answer any questions with the budget. I know I see Mike down at the other end wanting to ask a question quickly. So I'll leave it up to the judge if he wants him to ask me that question. I mean, it's up to you guys. I mean, I'll take a question now if you want.
All right, Measure Logston.
Did you say that Goshen pulled out of our stormwater, they're gonna collect their own fees now?
That's a good question. I know that, I'm not sure if they will collect
They
a
have
fee.
to, but I'm just saying, so
I
they're
don't know if
not,
they have to or not. It's,
well,
it's
it's
in their budget.
MS4, they have to, I mean, you have to collect water, stormwater.
Unless they put it in their budget, Mike. I don't know. Magistrate office.
But they're not gonna contribute to us anymore, right?
They will not, when their property tax bills go out, the monies that would be collected for the city of Goshen will not be placed into our stormwater budget.
And their
It's similar to
projects are
Pee
gonna
Wee Valley.
be, and they'll be in charge of their own projects
They're
then,
in
right?
charge of their own project. They have to do their own audit reports with the state. They have to maintain that they make sure that they maintain the 6 MCMs, the minimum control measures dictated by the Division of Water and EPA to the federal government. So they'll do their own audit reports, same as Pee Wee Valley does also, I believe. So it's a huge responsibility, but they're taking it on, so.
Well, there's a question, there's a reason why I asked that, will come up later.
Okay, and then I will tell you that preliminarily, I think we were told in the board meeting that there's going to be at least about approximately 199 new stormwater fees, I believe, ERUs, we call them ERUs, which is stormwater quality fees for residents, that will range between $6,000 to $7,000 that will help maintain and grab some of that 10,000 back. But we're working within the budget. I mean, at this time, we're trying to get some of these projects done. There are some things that I think Jim's going to discuss. The board's also looking at, because I believe, I've had several members from the magistrates come to our meetings with some of their constituents in their neighborhoods or their territory, their districts, and have stormwater problems on their properties. And it's not on public right-of-way, it's on private property. Some of them are in HOAs, that do not have HOAs. They do not really have an existing HOA. They may have where they don't collect dues, but they have stormwater facilities. They actually have storm drains. They have head walls. They have guttering. Things that need to be maintained, and there's no budget for them. And which creates a problem, a stormwater problem on the roadways, on their property. And there's an issue that needs to be addressed. Does the board look at some of these incidents that are on not creating, maybe not creating a problem for flooding for a 50/50 grant? So,
Right. Yeah, we do have our 50/50 program for homeowners. It will pay match up to $7,000
Correct.
of expense for stormwater issues
And I
on private
hope to see,
property.
more homeowners that have a flooding issue in their house or homes, use that opportunity for that, so.
Magistrate Hawkins.
Regarding the surplus of revenue, I get asked about that. Is there a cap where then the taxes will go down? I know it's I have a feeling of the answer I'm going to receive, but I'm wondering, what goal,
Well, the
monetary
first-
goal are you looking
I
at?
would say the first project at Goshen Hills is approximately 400,000, or it could be more. The second project, or the second phase of that project, could be as much or more to mitigate the stormwater problem in that area. I could foreseeable see just that one project wiping out the reserves.
Okay, thank you.
Magistrate Dye.
Yeah, y'all do a great job over there, and sometimes it's pretty much of a thankless job, kind of like working for the Environmental Authority Board. So I understand, I would say the stormwater fee, since I've been on court and before that, was fairly misunderstood by most people. I remember hearing things like, it's not the quantity of water, it's the quality of water. I've heard all these cliche remarks. But you said that you call them ERUs,
Yes.
they're capped out at, how much was it? I just saw it here, but $32.
$33.84.
And that's been that way since day one, hasn't it?
It was probably more than that,
Like before day one?
more than that, yes. I would say,
It was 42, 2009,
yes,
and since 2010.
yes.
So it's been that since 2010?
Yes.
And we haven't raised it in 10 years?
No, and and I think I'm fair and accurate of saying this. On your property tax bill, just like mine, you see the $33.84 ERU. If you pay your taxes on time, that's a 2% deduction off of that. And there's also a fee that goes to the sheriff's office that collects, which I don't know exactly, 4.5%. So you think about 6.5% comes off that $33.84. We don't get.
And if
So
you,
we're in a $20 bracket range to try to mitigate stormwater problems in this county.
and you'd also have to add in there that probably inflation's about 2 to 3% a year.
Absolutely.
That's 10 years, that's 30% you're not getting. So I'm not advocating raising the fees today unless there was a justification for it, and you all would be the one that have to come to us with that, wouldn't you?
That's correct, and as of January 2021, the state just passed laws that basically says that any SPGE, which we are, needs to bring forth any rate increase or rates increase to you guys,
And
legislative body.
And since 2010, you all have become this SPGE, and you've encountered expenses from that.
Yes, we do.
So your ball of wax keeps getting, as I've been talking here just a minute or two, your ball of wax keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller, but the number of problems that you have keep getting more and more and more, and the bad ones are getting worse and worse. So I think I think we're backing the train out of the station, not into the station.
We are, and I think you'll notice that administratively, the cost I believe, and I think the other board members will agree with me, and I believe Stan will agree, and I think everyone else here would agree. Administratively, our costs are much lower than it was previously who managed it before. The reason why is because the contract money that we give to the county and the city of Lagrange primarily is being utilized, yes, some for the county for salaries, for engineers, or for software equipment, that the GIS and mapping that needs to be done, and audit reports and the audits that have to be done. Primarily, most of that money is being utilized to repair stormwater, mitigate stormwater issues on right-of-ways.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
that's
you know,
not
and
getting
we
done.
use the road department to do that. I mean, we use the road department, and that gets money. Some of that $525,000 the county gets, it goes for some of that issues. So it goes to the general fund, and that's dispersed out to the county, using that to help mitigate those issues.
Well, mitigation of county roadway problems is one of my biggest complaints, and it's one that is heard the least. And I would like to see, I'm not saying raise the rates, but I'd like to see the rates get back to where the value of what they were on day one. I don't know, now, Stan could probably do that mathematically somehow and figure that out. I could do it
In
too.
the last
at a
2
time.
years, Stan and I have discussed, along with the board members, discussing our rates for the stormwater fees. Each year, we've been waiting till the expenditures of our reserves. But the problem is, all the board members, and myself included, realize once you start spending those reserves quickly, it's hard to collect when you're only having between 180 to 200,000 each year as carryover to do one project that may cost you $400,000 or $500,000.
Well, Goshen Hills is probably going to cost, I'm just throwing a number out here, what you just said a minute ago. Well, Jim, you want to throw a number out there? Would you think it would just a guesstimate? Nothing's feet being held to the fire. $800,000 do the whole thing?
No, well, for phases 1 and 2,
Yeah,
yes,
800,000.
because the
Well,
phase
you don't need to tell me why. I'm just looking for a number. I mean, this is not an argument, it's just a discussion. $800,000, well, you're trying to build up a reserve of $800,000, and all that money's going to one project, and you're talking about mitigating flooding on roadways. It's not going to happen. So I think we need to decide what we're going to do first. You know, so I think that you guys are caught between a hard spot and a wall, and I just think that we're going backwards on this. You know, everybody says, well, the fee's not doing anything. Well, when things cost $800,000, you got to collect a lot of fees to get to $800,000 when you're losing every year and you're paying fees and all these other things. So I mean, I think that I'm a big believer that fees should go up along with inflation.
It should, yes.
You know, I didn't say taxes, I said fees.
Right,
Okay.
right. It should.
To echo kind of what Magistrate Dice said, that's the biggest complaint that I get is stormwater issues. And county engineer and I and Vic have walked Confederate Estates and Ashbrook. And the problem is that the water getting to the county roadway is not being able to be dispersed. So there's a problem on the county side, and there's a problem on the resident side, the private property side. And I don't know that raising the fee, in order to get some of these projects fixed, we're gonna have to raise the fee. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Right.
But I guess, you know, one of the things that the court, we've talked about over and over again, is a list of prioritization of what the next projects are gonna be. I've been hearing about Goshen Hills for the last 3 years I've been on court.
So is Goshen Hills.
I know.
And
They've
they're
been hearing about it a lot
here.
longer
And
than
they're
that.
here too.
And they've been hearing about it a lot longer than that, and I understand that. But what's the next project that we're gonna work on? And don't say the Buckner soccer fields, because I've been hearing about that for a long time too.
Right.
We've got more projects than we've got revenue.
We do.
And kind of to Magistrate Dice's point, the revenue's going down, the project list is going up. And at some point in time, that graph has gotta meet.
Right.
And-
In fairness, Magistrate Howens, Yes, we would love to raise the fee. At the same time, I think we are trying to be prudent at that. When you're looking at our citizens in Oldham County and they see whatever it may be, 1.4, 1.5 million in reserves if we get that to a level, but we haven't spent any major money yet. I think once you see this first project and the cost that's outlaid there and the expenditure of that, then we would have the justification to say to the county, your fee is going to go up because of these reasons, and here's the priority list of those. And we'll present that to you guys here to vote on it, because next year you will have to vote on if we do a rate increase.
The other piece of the puzzle is if we were raising the fee a little bit every year,
Right.
Yeah.
then you would have a little bit more in the bank.
We discussed that.
And, you know, this whole thing about compounding, if you take, you know, if we raise it 50 cents, I don't know what that comes out to be. But I guess, you know, it sounds like to me what we're anticipating potentially is a larger raise that we could have been taking smaller bites out of the apple over the last 10 years.
And there are some issues that you can think of that I would agree upon that you would be having a bigger apple there. But at the same time, some of these projects that have been brought to us may not meet
Understand, I
us.
understand.
And right now, the way the board has looked at it as it's got to be on public right of way, or a 50-50 grant where a homeowner's home is being flooded. But the board has not had a chance to legally discuss our liability issues where if we say we're going on somebody's private property, to expend money, county funds on a private property.
Well, I'm not for, you know, just, so first, private property problems are private property problems. You get your water out to us and we'll take it from there. Okay.
In some
And
cases,
most of the time,
but
and most of the
my-
time, and I'm not an engineer, I'll have to let Jim discuss that with you.
But my whole point, and along with Measure Hounds, is I don't know what the best projects to do, which ones are to do first. I mean, there's all kinds of rhyme and reason, and Jim's an engineer and I'm not, and I appreciate that fact. I'm glad he is, and I'm glad I'm not. But I do understand time value of money.
Right.
And every day y'all stay open, you're losing money. Period. You can't cut it any other way.
I would partly agree with that, yes.
All right, I'm done.
Okay, why don't we go on? This is a good discussion, but we'll keep moving here. And our county engineer is going to give us a MS4 report here now. And first thing you can do is explain what the MS4 stands for.
It stands for 4 M's, or no, sorry.
To put you on the
Right off
spot
the
there.
bat, 4 S's, municipal storm sewer, or separate storm sewer system. There you go. I should have written the note there.
Thank you.
Municipal separate storm sewer system. And I'll skip through some of the, I think we've talked in the past, I'm sure we've talked in the past, even before me, about the MS4 program, the MCMs, the minimum control measures, the evolution of the program. You probably don't need to hear that again, but maybe to answer some of your questions, as far as we're moving forward, and as we have been moving, to address those MCMs, we provide a report, a monthly report from the engineering department. You get to see the plans that are reviewed, the number of erosion control complaints we respond to, or drainage complaints we respond to. Those go to directly address or be applied to those MCMs. Sounds like the bigger, one of the larger concerns though is projects. And like Mr. Douglas said, last year there was a zero spend in the projects. That was because we were getting this ball rolling. When we look at whether it's a prioritization of projects based on the number of people affected and the cost of the project and the time it's going to take, however that's prioritized, we're working on that. But we do have a couple projects in the hopper, the Goshen Hills Phase 1 and the Buckner soccer fields that took that time to get really appropriately developed. And as you see in your agenda later, we'll talk about the request for award of those, and how we've worked to make the budget, or make those projects work within the budget, as Chairman Douglas mentioned, because the bids did come in higher than expected. With the Goshen Hills moving forward, hopefully, and Buckner soccer fields moving forward, hopefully, we'll talk about that later. We've also started the mapping of the MS4 system using the GPS equipment that we purchased. What we've been able to utilize that for is, in addition to mapping the system, which is a requirement of the permit that we have with the Division of Water, we're also able to, while we're out there, identify some locations proactively where normally, or in the past, we've been retroactively responding to when a homeowner complains to us or calls us about a clogged pipe or a broken storm drain. Since our guys are out there now mapping this, they see it, and we take it, document it, and bring it in, so we're not waiting for that call. At the same time, we're able to guide their mapping to where we think the next project should be based on history. So we've gone ahead and started mapping Confederate Estates, Ashbrook, Clovercroft, because we know those are areas of a concern. So we can utilize that data to better assess where the problems are. Then with with that base knowledge, go forward and get a consulting engineer to do a further, more detailed design to get a plan and a construction plan base for a project like we have and like we did for Goshen Hills. So that's kind of where we are and where we're moving. I think, and as that keeps developing, like I mentioned earlier, that ball will keep rolling, because now we have projects moving, we have some developing. As projects are finished, we'll have more developing, taking those place, and it just keeps going and going. And you're right, as we see a $374,000 project and then a $50,000 or $60,000 and start spending this money again, we will run out of that and we'll have to entertain the discussion of, do we raise the fee? With that said, I'll open it to questions.
Anyone have any questions here for Jim at this point? Magistrate Likens.
Thanks, sir. If you look up Jefferson County's rates, they're $7.28 per month. That equates to $87.37 per residential unit, as compared to our $33. So we're not even half of theirs. And a lot of our problems, I think we should look into raising this fee, because a lot of our problems come from the fact that we didn't have any regulations for stormwater in Oldham County 25 years ago. They didn't exist with detention basins and that type of thing. So we should have lessening problems, but these problems we have are old problems. As Goshen Hills over there, this has happened to them for the last 50 years. There was nothing to keep that from happening. So I would suggest we look into making the fee equal to the problems that we have now, and then maybe sometime in the future that could go down if we have less and less issues. Realistically, you know, yeah, fees don't.
You don't
usually go
really
down.
think anything's going to go down.
Well, I mean, if there's not anything to correct, you would have to.
With the amount of white hair you got and I've got, it'll never happen in our lifetime. We're still on the back end of this problem. Let's get that part done first.
But the point of this whole thing is, this is state
versus
mandated, right?
87.
That's correct.
I mean, it's not something that's put on our backs that we're just trying to raise the rates on the taxpayers. I mean, this is state mandated. You have to have a program.
We have to have a program.
Unfunded mandate.
The limit to which you participate is based on really the limit to which you can, and we're able to. And so that's where the decision and discussion comes in. How much are we willing to do for our community, for Oldham County?
Okay.
And it's always been good.
All right, I'd like to move on if we can. Magistrate Hawkins, you would
I was
want-
just going to thank the chairman for the comprehensive answer.
Okay.
It's a good discussion. I came in a bit critical, and it's, I appreciate the discussion, so thank you.
All right, thank you all. Appreciate it. Good job.
And before, can I add one thing before?
okay.
Ben Kimbler back here with the road department, I don't know if we've mentioned enough that when we talk about the roads and stormwater, they go together. The culverts under the roads, we're constantly working with Ben. He and I are going to meet out tomorrow and look at Holly Gibson on these smaller, I call them smaller projects, not the $50, $60, $300,000 projects, but the daily work that they're always out there doing for this program.
Right, they have berms and catch basins and drainage things, and appreciate everything the road department's doing, and
Yes.
Ben is doing a good job. He's behind us. He's got a hat and a mask on back there, so he's, you know, a little hard to recognize, but saw your uniform, so I knew who you were, so. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, and we'll go on here. I want to open these, we have a bid award here, and that's for our court recording system here. And let Melissa Horn go through this with us here. The we did this before, but we rejected the bids. We adjusted, the requirements were adjusted, and so we have some new bids to open here now. First one is from Conference Technology of Indianapolis, $153,670. Justice AV Solutions, $97,978.98.
Doesn't matter.
The third bid is also from Justice AV Solutions, $86,600.72. The third bid is from Ring Central Incorporated, Belmont, California, $45,797. So I'll pass those to Melissa. And $45,997. Maybe a couple of cents, I don't remember that.
$797 or $990?
Sorry, $797, all right, thank you. And that is for redoing our court system in here. A court recording system, let's put it that way. Now we have bid awards for Eden Parkway Phase 1 and 2 and Lagrange Parkway median modifications. Jim Urban.
Good afternoon, Judge, magistrates. At your last meeting, we opened bids for this project that the judge just announced, and we'd like today for you to consider approving and awarding Louisville Paving the project. They are the lowest responsive bidder at $2,740,000. That's about $1 million less than our engineer's estimate, so we're happy that it came in at that. Most of them were clustered right around that amount, so it's a really great bid opening for us. I want to remind you that Oldham County Fiscal Court is only responsible for half of that amount, so $1,370,000. The other half is the City of Lagrange. And I'll be going to the Lagrange City Council meeting on September 8th to ask them to consider approving the award of this contract. So again, I'm asking Fiscal Court to allow, to first of all award Louisville Paving the bid, and then allow the judge to sign the contract.
Judge, I'll make that motion to award this to Louisville Paving and give you permission to sign the contract.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded that I award, that I sign the bid award for Louisville Paving for Eden Parkway and Phase 1 and 2, and some modifications to the medians on Lagrange Parkway. And this bid is, or was it? It was right in front of me a second ago, 2.7 million, is that correct?
Judge,
$1,740,000, yes, sir.
Judge,
Yes, sir.
did, Jim, did you say the Lagrange is going to meet to talk about theirs at a city council meeting?
Yes, they also have to allow the mayor to
So
sign
do we
the
need to
contract.
make this contingent upon them approving theirs? Or are we going to be held for the whole thing if they don't approve it?
I think our arrangement is that all invoices have been split equally between Lagrange and Fiscal
Understand
Court.
that.
But let me add too, that at a meeting probably about 12 months ago of the city council, they authorized the mayor to go ahead and pursue building Eden Parkway. So they're well aware of the project and it's in their budget. And again,
I understand, but things happen. Can we just add a contingency upon Lagrange approving it also?
Well, in other words, no, they're gonna sign. They're
Okay.
gonna sign. They're our
It's only $2
partner in this,
million.
you know. I don't think that's any issue, Magistrate, to be honest about it. Well, we're not, you know, they're gonna sign, we'll put a lien on them, on their property.
Yeah, that's fine.
Otherwise, we can't, if we send it to them, then they gotta sign it. We can't play that back and forth. They're our partner here. and
well,
they're gonna sign.
the way the contract is actually written, it has both signatures. So if they chose not to approve it, then we'd have to,
We have a void contract.
right, yes.
Okay, great. All right, moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question?
Yes, sir.
What about the median modifications? Can you explain that a little further?
Sure. Lagrange Parkway, of course, has been built and open for quite some time, and the medians are grass. And what we have found is that they taper for left turn lanes, and the equipment that we have to mow those medians is wide, so we have to get in there by hand. We don't have push mowers. We go by hand and have to, where that taper is, where it narrows down, and we essentially weed whack the grass in those areas. So what we're going to do is take the grass out and put stamped concrete, and it's to a distance. If you drive down there, there's a sign that separates the lanes for the turning movements. It's roughly around that, where the taper starts. So it'll be stamped concrete instead of grass, and it'll be easier for us to maintain it.
Okay, thank you.
And the mowers will be able to turn around without
Right.
doing a second
Stepping up
motion
stuff,
there.
yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, now we have a request for in-house construction for the Buckner soccer fields. Jim Sullivan. Drainage improvement project.
Glare off that. So what we have, and I provide you with a memo that should be in your booklets. Again, as we discussed during the stormwater budget presentation, $420,000 has been budgeted to be reimbursed to the fiscal court by the stormwater board. For these two capital improvement projects. Both projects bids were received on July 21st, and while both came in higher than we anticipated, we'll talk a little bit about Goshen. Goshen was more reasonable and understandable. The cost that we received the bids for the Buckner drainage improvements were more excessive than made sense to award, so we're not recommending award of that. However, in discussion, I was discussing with Ben Kimbler, our road department supervisor, about the potential for doing this as kind of a staged project in-house where we bought the materials. They provided labor and equipment to dig the ditch. And basically what I've got here is the location. This is 146 in Buckner, and here's the high school. These are the soccer fields, and the plan is to cut a new ditch along this west side to a basin, a detention basin here before it releases into the wooded area where cross-country groups practice for the high school and high schools. One of the issues is, one, there's undetained water going back here, so there's high flow getting to all these neighborhoods. That detained would help our stormwater volume go in that direction. Also, there's two houses here in Grand Villa that the water that should be going that way is actually leaving the site and crossing into their backyard, and they've got some pretty significant erosion, and so we're wanting to address that by channelizing this and keeping it from hitting their property. So again, I put together some estimates based on material costs that Ben was able to provide to me in addition to some structure pricing from vendors for like the head walls and the basin outlet structure, and put together a cost estimate for what we could probably do that material costs and maybe some equipment also if we needed to rent a piece of equipment or two that the road department doesn't have. And so what I'm requesting is for the fiscal court move to award or allow us to do this work in the amount of not to exceed $50,000 as approved by the Stormwater Board.
Is there a motion in that regard?
I'd like to make that motion. Thank you, Judge.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Magistrate Greenwell.
Thank you. Jim, how long do you expect this project to take to complete?
Well, we had originally put a 60-day completion time on it when we bid it out. However, now, I think because we can stage it and we would actually do it, and again, I spoke with Ben about this, we would have to do this as his crews are available. So the idea would be to try and get in there and do the most critical aspects of it. For instance, the ditch, cutting the ditch and lining that first, and then if his crews can't get to the next section, we just have to phase that in. So it might be staged. So it's kind of hard to put a timeline on it other than addressing the critical channel first.
If you had decent weather, it maybe could take as long as 6 months, I guess.
Because we would be working around trying to use
Doing other
only our
things.
forces when they're available. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. How does this interfere with the soccer season and all that?
Well, we had not anticipated any issue with it because the soccer typically have games on the weekend, and during the weekdays, they're not practicing during the day. They were only going to be practicing in the evenings, so that allowed us all weekdays to work, and that shouldn't change. The last I heard, I've not spoken to Rock Thompson with the soccer organization in the last couple of weeks, but when we did last speak, they were planning on a fall program, and we wouldn't have impacted that program. So we would just have to continue that coordination, and it's a line of communication
They
we
don't
have.
they don't practice or play in this area anyway, do they? This is.
We would just have to, there would have to be safety, we'd have to avoid.
Tape and all that?
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Magistrate Logston.
Jim, who owns this piece of property?
That's if I understand it correctly, it's the state property that's leased to the county. It's a 25-year lease, is that correct?
It's owned by the state?
That's correct.
Can we spend money on property that doesn't belong to us?
Well, it does belong to us. We've leased that property for 25 years and are in the process of getting the lease renewed for another 25 years. And that's the same circumstance we have down at Wendell Park, where we paved walking trails down there and put in a golf course, and improve that property. So as long as you have the lease and you're the custodian, you certainly can improve the property that you've leased.
Okay, I just didn't know if it belonged to the school or who it belonged to.
It's our responsibility
Okay.
there. Okay. Magistrate Harrison.
Thank you. Judge, isn't there a sublease from us to the Soccer Association?
Yes.
It's parallel to ours. They have the same terms that we have with the state.
So
So it's really, whose ground is it?
it's our ground. We have agreed to lease it out to them, and right now our lease with the state needs to be renewed now, and their lease with us expired a year or two ago as well. So that needs to be renewed.
All right. Yeah, I'm concerned about any damage being done to the soccer fields, because they were put in all with volunteer labor and volunteer materials. And I can easily see how heavy equipment coming in and out of there could do some real damage.
We coordinate with our forces to avoid that.
Well, we need to talk about some special issues down there you're not aware of too, because we almost lost 2 pieces of equipment in the process.
Well, be it our people or Louisville Paving, somebody's gonna bring some equipment in there to do something. I mean, that's
Understand.
an inescapable fact, yeah.
Understand, but there's a safe route and a not safe route. My major concern is that I've gone back and reviewed the responsibilities of the road department as set out in the county regs. And we are geared for maintenance and repair. This is neither one. This is new construction because you really don't have a designed ditch that you're working from. And it's one thing to take a piece of equipment and regrade a roadside ditch that's already there, or to spread gravel on Hidden Valley Road and regrade it. This is a different animal. And I was not aware that we had people with that experience, that expertise, because somebody's gonna have to be setting grade stakes, somebody's gonna have to be shooting levels, somebody's gonna have to be checking it, somebody's gonna have to be checking the slope. And if we're that caught up in the road department, please let me know, because I've got about a month's work down the 3rd District where I could use them, doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is road maintenance. This doesn't have anything to do with the road.
Well, I think the road department and Ben and some of his crews, they've been very useful in ditch work along the road, culvert replacement. So I felt that I wanted to ask him if he was comfortable with it. And Ben, if you'd like to come up and speak more to this, feel free. But we decided that with both of us working together, this ditch could be installed. It's not, I don't think it's such a complicated problem that it can't be done together, but I do understand your concerns.
I'm not
And that's
sure.
why we have to, it would take a little bit more time.
Now, I will not vote in favor of it.
Okay, well, the alternative is to spend $300,000 more.
Well, I think you could redo the scope of work, couldn't you, Judge?
Not really. Our engineer's been down there. These people's backyard's flooding. We gotta do something down there. I don't know, what are we gonna do? Yeah, I mean, Ben Kimbler, can you come to the front, please? And I respect your point of view there, but, also, yes, please. You know, I think our engineer feels that he can handle this project. And Ben, do you feel that your men can do this project?
I mean, I know we could do the work, but I'm kind of like up in the air. We're just going to help out, you know, like I said, for the thing. But as far as the project goes, I don't think it's a concern at all. I've run the
Well,
equipment.
you can or cannot do this work.
I mean, if I'm out there helping, yeah, I think it can be done. 'Cause I've shot grades, I've run dozers and high lifts and whatnot like that. It's not it's the way that he's got it drawn out now. It's not nearly as complicated as what the bid come in on. The scope of work that what the bid came on, no, we don't have the equipment or the manpower to do it. But as far as that goes, good weather, I mean, that's probably a 2-week project, maybe 3. But as it sits, you know, that's a lot more simplified than what it was.
All right, well, how did that happen, Jim?
What's that?
How did the project get more simplified than it was?
Well, when we saw the bids came back, one, they were significantly higher than even what the detailed scope we had provided. The scope we had built in because we wanted to, similar to like Pond 5 that has step pools and native species throughout it, that costs more. But it was being done, we were planning and wanting to do that because it's in an area near schools, so they could utilize it for educational purposes. Also, it's by the soccer field, so you've got kids and visitors there all the time. So we're really wanting to do this kind of like a flagship project. However, if it's going to cost that much money, we just can't. It's not feasible. So that's why we really dialed it back and came up with the scope that we've got now.
Okay, well, to Magistrate Harrison's question, can you rebid it as a simpler project?
We can.
Yes,
Magistrate
that'd be my
Tice.
favorite.
Magistrate Tice.
And I understand what Magistrate Harrison's saying, but we've been talking for several years now that we've been collecting all the stormwater, and we've yet to turn any shovel yet or to do any project. This is a perfect project where we could see if we can manage it. It's not complicated. It can be, Ben's already said he can handle it. It needs to be done. This problem or issue has been persistent now for as long as I can remember. since the soccer fields were put in over there. They've increased the flow and they've breached the banks, or whatever you say in the correct terms, and now they're in the neighboring subdivision yards. We need to go forward and find a way, and apparently we have a way that's not going to be so astronomical for the county that we can get something done. If we don't do this, then we're back where we are. Well, we need to have the stormwater, but we can't seem to get a project done. This is a great project to start with, and it's very needed to be done because this has been going on for years. Versus the project we're talking about over at Goshen Hills. That is a major issue. There's no other way of handling that except through contract. But I think this is important to get done just to see if we can go forward, and I don't think it's a problem. And one other thing, in going back with the soccer, they're expanding their soccer fields on the other side of what I'll call the ravine or the dip. And we need to make sure that as they go forward with that, that we require them to do their permitting so that we don't end up with another issue like the issue we've got at this point.
Manager Greenwell.
That's kind of my point, Magistrate Tice, is I don't see how we let this get this far along, because had this piece of property been slated for development, we would have required the developer to go in and do all the work that it took to make sure that the water didn't drain down on the downhill subdivision. And here these people have been suffering this, you know, not atrocity, but definitely discomfort of having all this water down on their property for all these many years. And if that had been a development, you know, that wouldn't have happened. But yet, we let it happen because people are using their time and talent and doing it privately and all this kind of stuff, but yet the problem remains that, you know, the water's still flowing on the neighbors' yards.
Well, I don't want to give a history of what this place is because I probably be wrong about some aspect of it, but I believe over the period of time, the soccer group has built up those fields and kept trying to improve their circumstance, and as they improve their circumstance, it probably just had an incrementally detrimental effect on the neighbors that we kind of just got to the point where we are. Now, I've met with the soccer association and asked for help on this, and, you know, they're willing to give a little bit, but, you know, their billfold's pretty thin. They don't have too much that they can contribute. I've got a figure in mind, but I'm afraid to say it for fear I might be wrong, but it's, you know, it's a small part. They are willing to help a little bit, but they don't have a lot. The plus here is that 700 families in our community are involved in a family activity, taking their kids out there doing stuff. So we've always been supportive of the recreational aspect of this, and the water issue, I won't say just slipped up, but it kept getting a little bit worse with time, and now we're stuck here to the point where they don't have the money to fix it, and the neighbors are suffering. And so our stormwater program is intended to solve problems like this. We did take a bid. We could, if it's the court's wish, we could back up and take the second bid with the amount that we were going to ask the road department to do. I'm very confident the road department could do it. Ben is skilled and his crew is skilled, and they could do this. And he said, what'd you say, 2-3 weeks if you had
Decent weather. I mean, like
decent weather?
We obviously have to pull off to do other
right,
jobs as
but
they come
it's
in.
going to, and they're not going to have the profit margin that we're going to have to pay to bring a outside group in here. And so that's kind of where we stand. That should die.
Well, I don't know anything about the background of these soccer fields and how the water got from, apparently, the water that used to sit on the fields now sit in people's backyards. Is that pretty much a fair statement?
It's amazing what will happen when you leave grass this tall versus grass this tall. A soccer field versus just a field.
Yeah.
I mean, that'll slow the water down. This will not.
So there's something that occurred to make this water all of a sudden appear. Now, if it's been going on for I've heard 2 or 3 intervals of time. I don't know how the water got on these people's ground, these residents' ground. We are just like any other entity or group or person. We're not supposed to be throwing water on our neighbors. No, we can't throw water on our neighbors, and we can't deny our neighbors for water. That's a pretty basic rule. I think they had that Ben Cartwright rule on Ponderosa. I think that was his rule. But if we've allowed this to happen, we're on the hook to fix it. And I don't have any problem with the road department doing it, because I've been down to the road department. They've got some pretty nice equipment. If that gentleman right there, Mr. Kimmel, if he says he can do it, I believe he can do it. I don't think he'd stand there and tell us he can do it. And as far as Mr. Harris, Badger Harris, talking about the damage to the fields, the way I understand it, you're just going to cut a ditch down one side of the field?
Yes, and then add the detention basin.
Yeah, okay. I don't know how big a ditch you're doing, and I don't know how much work area you have to have, but I think you can keep that damage down to a fair minimum. And I don't think you would use any more or any less work area than any other private contractor. So I think that, we need to move on. Let's get this finished and get it off the table. I mean, if we're guilty of something, we didn't show good foresight, then I'll vote for this. And I'll give the road department, because I think the road department needs to do some of this type of work. So,
Magistrate Logston.
My question still was, I don't mind doing the work, and I think the road department can do it. Can you improve private property? And you said yes, so that's all, that was my question.
Well,
And I
it's
think
not
that's
private property, it's public property.
Well, I understand, but if I have a house leased it doesn't belong to the person leased it. It belongs to me still. So my question is only if I approve this, as long as it's legal, as you can spend county funds on private property, which is state property, which we don't own, but that's okay, even though we lease it.
Mr. Carter?
If we have a lease, we have a fee interest in the property, and we can improve it.
Magistrate Hounds.
I'd like to see the road department do the project, because I think it would be a feather in their cap to complete the project, to show, here's a project that we started, that we designed, or that you designed, handed it to the road department, and they completed it. I know they got a lot of work to do, but if we can see proof of concept, then we can say, okay, what other projects can we get the road department to do that we may be able to save the taxpayer money? In the long run, maybe it's hiring another equipment operator or another, I don't know. But it would seem that if we have the equipment, and you said, you made a comment about renting it, I'm sure Ben knows what he needs to rent. If he needs a bigger piece of equipment that's gonna get the job done, and I'm making this up, instead of 14 days, it takes 10 days if we get the right piece of equipment, I'm all for that. You gotta have the right tools to get the job done. And, that's just a fact. So I think if we can do it, I think it'd be a great opportunity for the road department to show and shine, and we ought to give them the opportunity to do it.
Couple things.
Magistrate
Judge.
Harrison.
Thank you. We talked about the equipment we've got. Is our equipment operational today to where you could take it down there and do what needs to be? Because I understood that there was an issue with the grader itself.
The grader itself is non-functional, but it can be repaired, but I'm not sure time frame.
Yeah.
If it can be repaired with, this project and time frame wise.
Okay.
If we rented something, I would probably get a small dozer or a high lift.
Yeah.
Obviously to dig the retention for the high lift, but a dozer, we could set on a grade and cut the ditch with it, just rock it on. That in a skid steer would do it.
And I'm not questioning the ability of the road department doing what the road department does, and I think they do it very well, but we're expanding that, and they've got work that they should be doing, need to be doing, maybe not in your district, but I sure got culverts that
I've got
need to be
plenty in
cleaned
mine.
out, culverts that need to be replaced, dig outs that need to be done, ditches that need to be cleaned. But I won't be able to do that while they're working down there. And then you're gonna have this mobilization problem. something comes up, we have an emergency, you're gonna have to pull off of what you got down there, pull the equipment out, go do something else, then come back in, so we got this constant exchange of equipment going on down there. I say rebid it, give it to the pros and let them do it. I'll make a motion to that effect, that we rebid it based on the specifications that we're
Well,
using.
we've already got a motion on the floor here.
Okay, I'll wait.
We've got a motion on the floor. Wait, hold on a second here. We've got a
We had a second.
pardon?
First and
We had a
second.
motion and a second.
We had a motion and a second. Now, if you want to amend the motion, we'll see if the motion maker is willing to amend the motion.
No.
Would that be right?
No,
Okay.
I'm not willing.
All right. I believe we've had a discussion on this. You want to call the roll, please? The motion is that the road department go ahead and work this project with our county engineer, and that we're going to allocate, what was it, $50,000 for cost of materials and equipment rented.
Quick question, is this gonna come out of a budgeted item already? Where's the dollars and cents coming, the 50,000?
So again, we have to look at this as a total with the Goshen Phase One, because there was $420,000 budgeted for projects for Goshen Phase One and Buckner. And so when we get to the next project, Goshen, together they're within that $420,000
That's all I need to know.
that's in the budget.
You good?
First.
Okay,
Engineering department's budget.
got it.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Magistrate Likens.
Yes.
Magistrate Tice.
Yes.
Magistrate Harrison.
No?
Magistrate Greenwell.
Yes.
Magistrate Hounds.
Yes.
Magistrate Hawkins.
Yes.
Magistrate Dye.
Yes.
Magistrate Logston. Judge Vogel.
Yes? All right, motion carries 8-1. Okay, thank you. And Ben's a daggone good equipment operator, so no, don't say that. Yeah. Be fine. All right, thank you. Jim, thank you. All right. And Jim will be closely supervising all aspects of the project. All right, now we have our payables, is that right? Next
We need
item?
to, Goshen Hills is next.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. Ocean Hills Drainage Improvement Phase One.
Judge, I've got a question. Do you think
Ma'am?
we've got somebody who left? Should we take a 5-minute recess?
Okay, we have one magistrate gone, all right. I didn't realize he had left the, all right. Is there a motion to take a
So move.
short recess?
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
We'll try to keep it to less than 10 minutes.
Okay. Well,
Yes.
I know.
Yeah, here's the bids
I
right
know.
here.
I think he was trying, and then he said, well, it's an emergency. It was. But I think he was trying to say something, but we were voting and roll calling and.
You just sat there and said he could.
I heard that too.